States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the Rockwood Board of Education meeting. The purpose of this meeting excuse me, is to conduct the business of the district, hear reports about our progress, and listen to the community on important issues. We want to remind all of our visitors that we expect the audience to remain civil and respectful at all times as the board conducts its business. We appreciate your cooperation and that you took the time to attend tonight's meeting. The first order of our business is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The motion carries. 5.03, approval of Board of Education meeting minutes for April 24th, 2025. And the motion is to approve Board of Education meeting minutes for April 24th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. If there's no discussion, I will take a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Next is patron comments. I think we have a couple tonight. Okay. There, okay. During patron comments, citizens may address the Board of Education concerning agenda items. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes, and the patron comments period is limited to 30 minutes total. Combining time or giving your time to someone else to speak is not allowed. Only one speaker is allowed at the podium at a time. Please note that at the board's discretion, the board or superintendent may respond immediately to an issue raised during patron comments for clarification. However, our general practice is to respond to the comment at a later time via phone call or written message if a response is needed. We have a table with a microphone ready so that both the board and the audience may hear the patron comments clearly. If anyone has submitted a comment card that does not get the opportunity to speak, please know that you also have the opportunity to submit your comments in writing to the board at any time. The board appreciates that you took time this evening, and we value both your input and your perspective. For your convenience, our 3-minute time clock is ready. And our first patron comment is from Ben Murray.
Good evening. This is just a few thoughts after seeing some problematic posts on social media this week. But first, I want to thank Rockwood School District for its rigorous hiring process. By prioritizing qualifications, skills, character, and dedication, the district consistently brings in talented professionals who contribute meaningfully to the education and growth of our students, and the positive impact and return on investment for our community over the years has been truly significant. But I kind of just want to ask everybody to kind of take the time to remind ourselves that judging someone's role in our schools based on appearance or preconceived notions is discriminatory and unjust. Instead, embracing our community's differing backgrounds, perspectives, and life experiences only strengthens our schools and the future we're building for the Rockwood community. The most effective way to overcome fear is through open, honest dialogue rooted in empathy and curiosity. So this evening, I just kind of ask everybody to commit to fostering this environment where every individual is seen and valued for who they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Our next patron is Jason Thornburg.
Good evening. My name is Jason Thorberg, and I'm the parent of a child currently attending Wild Horse Elementary. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today regarding the proposed elementary school hire. I have two goals in speaking today. First, I want to clarify the nature of the concerns some parents have raised, and second, I want to propose what I believe could be a respectful, common-sense solution that benefits everyone involved. There's been some speculation that these concerns are rooted in bias or hate. I want to be clear, that is not the case. I don't speak for every parent, but I believe I represent many whom I say this individual's race, qualifications, and sexual orientation are not the issues at hand. From all accounts, hires are experienced, they're well-spoken, bring valuable experience, and go through a vetting process. The concern being raised is specific to how this a candidate chooses to present themselves, namely if they present in traditionally feminine dress, appearance, and mannerisms in a role at an elementary school. The concern is not about identity, but about age appropriateness and potential distraction for very young children in their schooling, who are still forming basic understandings of the world around them. Many parents feel that these are conversations they would like to introduce their children to themselves in their own time and in their own way. When I asked parents if this would be a similar concern at the high school level, most said no. While it may still be outside their comfort zone, they generally agreed that older students are better equipped to process and understand it. This leads me to what I believe could be a respectful compromise. If the hire chooses to present in a traditionally professional and gender-neutral way, no exaggeration, accessories, makeup, or stylized presentations draw unique attention and detract from students' education, I believe much of the concern would dissolve. This isn't about restricting personal freedom, it's about context. Just as I would wear a yarmulke when visiting a synagogue, out of respect, I would dress in a suit for a job interview, even if I don't personally enjoy it. These are norms we follow out of respect for others in the setting. It's not about conformity, it's about professionalism and minimizing distractions in environments meant for learning and development. I want to emphasize that I am not calling for anyone's removal, dismissal, or punishment. I'm simply asking that we ensure our focus remains on what's best for our kids, creating a safe, stable, and developmentally appropriate learning environment. I believe that's something that this hire can absolutely help provide, and I hope we can find a respectful way to move forward. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Jason. And our last speaker for this evening is Jessica Risenhoover.
Hi, good evening. I just want to talk about our hiring practices. I think that we should only hire women who, and require them to wear high heels, pantyhose, and dresses every single day. They should not be allowed to cut their hair, they must wear makeup, and they should have their nails professionally done every single day. Now, then that wouldn't be ridiculous, would it? Would that be ridiculous for us to require that? I mean, in men, I don't think we shouldn't have them they should all have to be clean shaven. Facial hair, I don't think children are ready to see that. It would just be ridiculous. So we should really regulate all of that for all of our employees, because it's my personal preference. And it's my child, my innocent child, who isn't ready to see women in pants. She's not ready for that. She's not ready to see men with facial hair. So we should eliminate all of that. I hope you see how absolutely ridiculous that all sounds. And I would remind everyone that the Blue Springs School District lost a lawsuit for $4 million for discrimination. And the Rockwood School District itself, in the last 2 years, had to pay out for 2 different discrimination lawsuits, particularly by parents attacking them online. Thank you very much. I hope you have a nice evening.
Thank you. 7.01, Superintendent and Board comments. Dr. Kane.
Thank you, President Vidyet. Earlier this evening, the Board of Education approved the hiring of Brittany Halpin as our new Coordinator of Human Resources for support staff, and Charles Buddy, I only call him Buddy, I think he only goes by Buddy, Soderman as our new Director of Research, Evaluation, and Assessment, both of which will begin on July 1. Brittany is replacing Stacy Neely, who is retiring at the end of this school year, and Buddy is replacing Glenn Hancock, who has accepted a position in another district. Brittany is currently serving as the Assistant Director of Talent Acquisition at Deployed Services, a position she has held for the past 3 years. Prior to that, she served as the company's Talent Acquisition Manager for a year. Brittany also has an additional 14 years of experience as a recruiter for companies that include Medical Transportation Management, Edward Jones, Netelligent Corporation as well. She earned a Bachelor's of Science in Corporate Communications and a Master's of Science in Human Resource Management from Lindenwood University. Currently, Buddy is an assistant principal at Eureka High School, a position he has held since 2023. Prior to that, he was interim assistant principal at Clayton High School for a year and was a health and physical education teacher for 6 years in Clayton and the Northwest School District. He also was the head basketball coach at Clayton High School and has 7 years of experience as an assistant coach at the collegiate level. Buddy has led multiple initiatives at Eureka and Clayton as a member of the Missouri Leadership Development System. Buddy earned his Bachelor's of Arts in Physical Education from Westminster College, a Master's of Science in Sports Management from Illinois State University, and a Master of Science in Educational Administration from Southwest Baptist University. Please help me in welcoming both Brittany and Buddy to their new roles. Congratulations. As you see on the screen behind me, Lafayette High School Band Director Brad Baylog is the Rockwood School District Teacher of the Year for the 2025-2026. Fellow teachers of the year in terms of grade level teachers of the year were Jordan Espinoza and Brian Tinney, as well as other Rockwood Building Teachers of the Year that were nominated, acknowledged, and present at the Rose Ceremony, which is this past Sunday. As the winner of the Teacher of the Year, Brad is now eligible to participate at the regional and state level in the Missouri Teacher of the Year program. This is conducted annually by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Congratulations to Brad and to all of our Teachers of the Year for being such absolutely shining examples of the caliber of educators and the students and families that live here in the Rockwood School District. Let's give them a round of applause. The Rockwood School District is getting ready to honor more than 1,600 seniors at our Class of 2025 graduation ceremonies, which will be held on May 10th and 12th. Let me repeat that, 10th and 12th. The 11th is Mother's Day. We are not graduating on Mother's Day. May 10th and 12th in the Family Arena, which is in St. Charles. All 4 ceremonies will be live streamed on the Family Arena YouTube channel. Video replays will be available on our Rockwood YouTube channel in the days following the ceremonies. Select photos and videos from the ceremonies will be available on the Rockwood website and social media channels in the days following the ceremonies. From what I have noticed, we have a number of high school seniors that are both energetic and excited about graduation. So congratulations to our graduating class of 2025. We truly cannot wait to see what the future has in store for you. So as you heard me mention earlier, the 36th Rose Award ceremony was held on Sunday, and we have more than 300 guests coming together to honor those who truly show their dedication and commitment to serving the children and the families of the Rockwood School District. The ceremony featured Teachers of the Year, Cornerstone recipients, service awardees, retirees, and, of course, the Rose Award recipients. Congratulations to each and every one of our honorees. And to finish my comments tonight, I think it's very appropriate that we watch this video that talks about this particular award ceremony.
Thank you. Board comments.
I would just like to congratulate Geggy on their anniversary on Saturday. Was it Saturday? A very warm Saturday morning. We went and celebrated. I did not participate in the 5K, but what I thought was amazing was the amount of parents that were there. There were a lot of alumni that came back to run in their 5K to celebrate their anniversary. And then there was people that didn't even have a connection to Geggy that were there celebrating with them. And I'd also like to congratulate Dr. Gary Jansen on his third place finish in his age category. So congratulations.
I ran the 5K, but I did not do that. I was very quickly humbled by the children running much faster than I could. It was awesome to see that community, and it's a great event. So congratulations.
And I want to thank everyone who put together the Rose Award ceremony. It was incredible. It was an incredible afternoon and evening, and it always is. And so thank you so much. I know it's a lot of work to put that together. And it always goes off great. And I just wanted to comment that I spent the morning at Marquette High School interviewing high school seniors for their upcoming transition. And it was amazing. The kids were wonderful. It had the level of confidence I saw this year with the students was really very, very strong. And afterwards, one of the teachers who work in the program said that the kids walked out so pumped up that they were ready to go and interview for other jobs. So hopefully they received something from the different people who were doing it. Tammy did it as well, and it was a great morning. So happy to have been invited and to be able to do that.
I'd just like to mention that since I talked so much about Marquette when I went to their Special Olympics event, I went to Lafayette's Special Olympics event, equally as well put on, despite getting a little bit of a curveball with some rain that happened right at the beginning and having to kind of reevaluate what they were going to do. And again, the most impressive thing to me about those events is how student-run they are. I would say that the adult participation is advisory in nature, and it really is run by the students and run just impeccably well. And I really believe that the students that run the program get at least as much out of it as the athletes do. So they did a wonderful job. And just as an aside, just in case anyone's interested, I was Brad Baylog's high school band director at Lafayette High School, so I'm very, very proud of him.
And in his speech, in Brad's speech, he mentioned Phil, and Phil started crying. Allergies. Yeah. He may have filled, maybe not spilled, but he did fill, that's for sure. So it was really nice.
And also for Special Olympics, I just wanted to also shout out all the teachers and staff who got the kids there that day and then got them on the bleachers, and then it started raining, so they had to transition. As a special ed teacher, I knew that was an extremely stressful hour for all of those staff, and they were just amazing. So I know that was it's so much work to put on Special Olympics on the teacher end with all the paperwork, but it is everybody's favorite day.
It is really something that the Rockwood district should feel very proud, because all the high schools do something now, and it's just, it's amazing support here for our students. Okay. Now it's time for 8.01, approval of consent agenda items, 8.02 through 8.37, and the motion is, unclip. Motion is to approve the consent agenda items as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a comment on item 8.14. Since Vice President Romberg isn't here, do we have anybody who's going to read the public gifts section? I'd be willing to do that with your permission.
That would be fantastic.
There's two gifts to point out today to make the community aware of. One is from the Rockwood Summit High School Silver Stars Boosters Club for about $1,700 for various activities for the Silver Star dance team. And the second one is from two of our patrons, Jeffrey and Jill Krogan from Marquette High School, who gave a $2,500 donation to the Rockwood, or to the Rock Band Club at Marquette High School. So I just want to say thank you to those patrons and to the Booster Club for donating to the school. We seem to do this every board meeting, and every board meeting there's more examples of generosity out there. So thank you very much.
And thank you, Bob, for remembering to do that. Appreciate it. Okay.
I've always got her back.
All right. So again, the motion is to approve the consent agenda items. I believe that has been moved and seconded, right? And that was discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Okay. Now, 9.01, and this is information only, discussion, Student Services Program Update with Matthew Berry and Jacqueline Floyd.
Is this thing on? Oh, okay. Well, thank you guys for having us here to present to you. We are here to talk about two different programs that we manage within our respective departments. And I get to go first. So my name is Jacqueline Floyd, and I am the supervisor for the social work department, and I am the homeless coordinator for Rockwood School District. So with the homeless coordinator role, my job is to implement and make sure that we are following the McKinney-Vento federal law. So when I say McKinney-Vento, many people for the first time are like, what are you talking about? I usually probably say it too quickly anyway. So McKinney-Vento is a federal law that was passed in 1987, and then reauthorized again in 2022. It was updated last in 2016. The biggest update at that time was pulling Foster and McKinney-Vento apart because they used to be together. And so that is what we currently follow. There's a lot to McKinney-Vento. There's a lot that outlines what we can do, what we can't do, and how we have to follow it. But the biggest, the broad picture for what McKinney-Vento is that it removes barriers for students to be enrolled and to stay in school when they qualify under homelessness. One important thing I like to point out here is that there's no time limit. So there is no time limit to when a student can be considered homeless. The other thing that this law does is ensures that students that are qualified under homelessness have access to the same amount of level of education that our regular resident enrolled students do, and that includes preschool. So I wanted to share that what that means for us, what is in the legal language, is something called immediate enrollment. When we have immediate enrollment is not defined explicitly in the law, but litigation has certainly defined it as an expectation of 24 to 48 hours. That does not just mean that we are enrolling them on paper. That means that we are enrolling them, they are actively able to attend, and they're actively able to participate in the educational setting. So that is what that looks like. Two important terms to share with you is school of origin and school of residence. So school of origin is where the student attends prior to becoming homeless. School of origin is deemed what is considered to be the best interest of the student. So that is where the student has the legal right to remain enrolled in school. And the school of residence is where the family or the student is currently residing. So for Rockwood School District, that could mean that a student we are their school of origin and we are their school of residence. That could also mean that their school of residence is in any of our surrounding counties, school districts. So what does it mean to say that someone qualifies as homelessness? as homeless or having housing instability. Those are children or youth who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. And so we qualify those in several ways. One of that is something that we call doubled up. And so that is when a family or a student is living with someone else in their housing due to some kind of economic hardship, a loss of housing, an eviction, a loss of employment. Sometimes that is domestic violence or safety, and sometimes that is like a natural disaster or fire, something like that. We also qualify families who live in motels, hotels, trailers that are mobile, not like mobile home parks or campgrounds, if they're living there related to a loss of housing. Living in shelters or transitional living shelters, that also includes, we have transitional living programs for teenagers where we place them in apartments. That qualifies under McKinney-Vento. Public spaces, I think that is what we usually think of when we all think of homelessness or when we bring that picture to mind. That certainly does qualify. Cars, parks, substandard housing. So if we have families that are living in homes without heat, water, or like adequate roofing in terms of like it's leaking water or something that is condemned, that's considered substandard housing. And then we have two other categories, migratory youth that meet the educational definition of migratory. They have to be migratory and not have a residence that is considered fixed, regular, and adequate, or unaccompanied children. So those are youth that are not in the living in the physical custody of a parent or guardian. Not that they don't have one, but that they don't live with them, and they lack a fixed, regular, adequate residence. So how do we support these families? How do we identify them? What does that look like here for us in Rockwood School District? So we, families certainly, or students can certainly self-identify. That happens. They come and share with us what their living situation is. We also do ask housing questions on our enrollment where families can answer. There's 4 or 5 questions that they can answer that would indicate some housing instability. Or there is something that we have noticed. So whether that is attendance changes, arrival or dismissal changes, maybe that is that a student's lunch account is an insanely high balance and we can't figure out what's going on there. That could mean that a student is experiencing some homelessness or a lack of proof of residency. So those are all ways that might clue us in to think that someone is having some struggles. When those families are identified, we connect them during the school year with the school social worker. So the school social workers receive training from me or from someone that I may bring in every year to align with our evaluation and enrollment process. We have a form that is completed. The social workers complete that form and then they send that to me. I review that, talk with them, and then I make a determination on if a student or family qualifies. That happens typically within a day. Very rarely does that go into the next day, only if like I get something super late, but that is happening within that school day. And ongoing support and services. So what happens after we identify someone as homeless? So we would connect with them, connect with the family, and see what kind of resources or support that they may need. That could look like toilet paper, shampoo, conditioner, housing resources, anything that they kind of need to help support either where they're staying or what they need to access their education adequately. Going to say that word wrong. And then we get updates throughout the year. Living situation or transportation changes, those can occur at any time. I do want to note that it is written. If a family finds permanent residency, meaning they sign a lease somewhere during the school year, they are entitled to remain in our district for the rest of the remainder of that school year for permanency of the child, and the school district is required to continue to get them to school. So that is one thing that does happen. And then in February of every year, altered how I've done it, but we're going to go forward with how I've done it this year. But in February, I start an outreach process. I reach out to every single homeless family that we have and connect with them about doing updates, and then I follow up with my school social workers who help me reach out to families that I haven't been able to get a response from. And then I review all the information and make a determination on if they will qualify for homelessness based on what we know at that moment in time for the upcoming school year. And that can certainly change given any housing changes between the time of that decision and the start of the next year. So the data, what does the numbers look like here with us? First, I want to start talking about Missouri as a whole. The most recent updated data I have for them is 2022, 2023. And at the last update, we had in the state of Missouri, we had a little over 34,000 students that were enrolled in public education that were identified as homeless. And you can see that majority of those students were considered doubled up or living with someone else. Then you can kind of see how those others break down through the rest of that time for the state of Missouri. So for Rockwood School District, as a moment in time, currently our numbers look different as of today, but as of April 16th, when I cut off my data look, we had a total this year of 236 students that at one point have been enrolled as McKinney-Vento this school year. What that looked like as of April 16th is that 174 students currently were considered and qualified as McKinney-Vento, and 62 students' McKinney-Vento status had ended already. So, and most of them have remained within Rockwood, but they found permanent residency within our attendance area. And then you can also see how it's broken down by school level and enrollment type. So for us, high school is our biggest percentage. And then our kind of like where our families are living. So 64% of our families are living doubled up with another family member, friend, or others. The other can also see that 27% of our students are unaccompanied. So those are students across all grade levels, elementary, middle, and high school, that are living in another situation that is not with their parent or guardian. So when you see that unaccompanied, that's what that means. We do have a student that at that time was also living in a shelter without a parent or guardian. So that does occur. That is my overview of McKinney-Vento, and I am going to pass it to my counterpart. He's going to go over his, and then we're going to go do some questions at the end.
Right. Thank you, Jacqueline, and thank you, board, for letting me be here to talk about our foster care. So my name is Matthew Berry. I'm the coordinator of school counseling for Rockwood and also serve as the foster care liaison with Rockwood. So students that are in foster care are most likely to really face a lot of challenges within their time as a student. They face challenges emotionally and have experienced a lot of trauma. Often we see students that are in foster have a lack of instability in terms when we think about their housing and their home, and are frequently moving homes throughout the year. And so it's very important as we're thinking about how do we care for our students in foster, we really are wanting to provide educationally as much stability as we can to support them, and really thinking about the systems that we have in place to ensure that they're able to access all that we have to offer. You know, in this process, when we're thinking about support for our students in foster care, there's a lot of individuals that really care for these students. A lot of times, as a lead, as a foster care liaison, that may start with me because I'm notified in terms of that we have a student that is either moving into our district that is in foster care, or we have a student that maybe has changed placement and is now residing outside of our district. But our registrars, our school counselors, our social workers play such a big role in ensuring that those students are able to maintain and have access to education. A lot of times too, you know, what we find, because there's such a shift in a student's movement and in terms of foster placement, they have lack of opportunities to be able to participate in extracurricular activities too. There could be a lot of inconsistency with that. And so those are really factors where we're looking at what's important in terms of making sure that we're building stability for educational learning for our students. Jacqueline mentioned when she was talking about McKinney-Vento, about School of Origin. That's also important here when we're thinking about our students that are in foster care. And so, again, School of Origin is that specific school building within a district or district where the child attended prior to being placed in out-of-home care, or the child's current school enrollment at the time of that placement change. And so we consider School of Origin when a student maybe is here in Rockwood and they move to a different district. But we also consider School of Origin because in our district, we have a very big district, and they may reside in the area where Babbler is, but then they may then have a different placement where Selvage Middle School is, or a different elementary school in that area. And so we're looking at what happens there and how do we best support that student. Do we keep them at the one elementary school, or do we move them to that other elementary school that they currently closely reside? And the way that we do that is through what we call a bid meeting. BID stands for Best Interest Determination. That meeting happens to really determine what is the best interest for the student. And so that meeting is set up by that School of Origin. So if the student is with me and the student is leaving to another district, we want to make sure that we're working with that social service agency to set up that bid meeting to make sure there's a smooth transition if that is what we determine. We'll talk a little bit more about that bid meeting and what that takes, what's all in place with that. We work closely with other districts, partner with other districts and other individuals across St. Louis County, outside of St. Louis County, and their foster care liaison. Additionally, too, one thing about St. Louis County, as comparison to maybe a smaller county outside, is that we have multiple agencies that we work with, right? And so there's a lot more effort in terms of having consistent communication to best serve those students. And there's also opportunities to have inconsistent communication because of that. And so it's really critical that when we have a student that is moving and has changed placement, that bid meeting takes place within those 3 or 10 school days. Sometimes we may know that there's going to be a placement change in the next week, and we still have that student. We're trying to set that bid meeting up as soon as possible so there's not a disruption in their learning and a disruption in terms of them getting to school or having access to that. When we sit down and have those bid meetings, we're considering a lot of different things. And I think it's very important when you think about a student that has had a lot of shifts in their life and they're moving from one place to another. The very first thing that we consider is, what does the student prefer? And why, right? What's important? Are they already, if they're in a school and they have established some great relationships, they have friends, they're involved, and maybe their placement here from Rockwood to someplace else, it could be 30 minutes away, right? We're making a determination what is most important. We're also looking at how many schools has the student attended. We know when there's a disruption in learning and you have a lot of shifts and changes, that's really going to have an impact on the student's ability to access education. Additionally, safety concerns. We talked about that school connection. What is their post-secondary plans? It's interesting. Well, we asked all those questions through all that bid meeting, and sometimes we're asking it of a first grader, right? What is their plans? And as they get older, obviously that changes. And also looking at, are there any special services required for that student? Those things are very critical and important to consider when we're making those decisions for those students. Also want to share some data with you. You can see, look at that Missouri state data, and that is what we recently have. Right now, from that data, we currently have over 12,000 students that are living in foster care. And some critical points to understand is that, the length of time for students in foster care in Missouri exceeds the federal standards. So, we have students that it's really hard at times when there's no other place for a student to be, right? And so it's important for us to think about like what that impact has. Additionally, the state faces challenges around staffing and retention. I believe, as a foster care liaison, and I've worked with probably 4 different state directors that are over foster care with the state. And so that, again, that communication piece. Also, child abuse and neglect reports, just to follow up on those, sometimes that can be difficult. I did want to put that here with in terms of our data and what that looks like, because that is something that does fall underneath me. You can see year to date, we have 97 reports of child abuse and neglect within our district, and you can see the breakdown in terms of where that lies. And all of our staff are definitely mandated reporters. And so they receive training in terms of what that looks like. When you look at Rockwood and how many students are enrolled in foster in Rockwood, we do have 75 students that are enrolled in Rockwood across all levels of school. And as we think about those students, we're really, again, kind of going back to thinking about those protective factors to ensure that they have access to learning, that we're building systems to make sure that they have that support, and really working with all those agencies to make sure that if there's shifts and changes in placement, that we get them to their educational access the best as we can. Okay. That is all we have. We definitely are here to answer any questions or hear any comments.
Thank you so much for presenting tonight. It tugs at my heartstrings, my mom heartstrings, when you hear that we have the number of students that have those struggles. Something I was involved with, a homeless shelter in St. Louis County. I think it's something just for people to understand. How many homeless shelters are in St. Louis County? Do you know?
For youth?
Few.
Yeah,
I don't even know off the top of my head, but
I
it's
think
limited.
it's less than like one hand
Yeah.
of places for people to go. So that's pretty astounding when you think of there are not a lot of places for families to go in St. Louis County. So
And also, on top of that, there are shelters that don't accept men. There are shelters that don't accept, so families are split. There are shelters that don't accept male children over the age of 12. So it's not even just that we have so few, but it's also that they do not accommodate families.
yep, and the
You know.
stipulations. So as far as the bid process, how do we handle the transportation? So if we know that we want to keep a student at Babbler,
Yeah.
but they're living in Baldwin, do we cover the cost of transportation, or do we get funding from the state or the federal level? How does that work?
Good question. So that cost is, we do cover a third of that cost, and so that if they were in district and they were moving from one school to the other, then that would be up our district and the social service agency. But if they were with another district and then also that social service agency, then we're splitting that cost 3 ways.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
For McKinney-Vento, just for clarity too, it's 50-50 split with the district of residence.
Okay.
So that is, and we do everything we can to cut cost and give a kid the best possible route to school.
And then on that 97 for reporting, I'm sorry, I'm a numbers person. Of those 97, you might not have this data, but it was a question that came to my head. Were there any of those 97, there were multiple reports on the same family, or were those 97 separate families?
Yes, that does occur.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I had a couple questions. Looking at the data, McKinley-Vento population looked to be weighted at the high school end, and the foster is weighted at the elementary end. Is there a driving reason for that, or is that just statistically just how it came out?
I think for me, we see more unaccompanied youth at the high school, and so that's why that's a bigger number. So we have more students, and I could theorize why it's at elementary, which is that there's more hotline calls at elementary, and so there's more, I would say, removals to be placed in foster care.
And we do have some students that are in foster care that families are working towards adoption too. I had one today, and so that a student has moved into adoption. So that does happen, I think, as students get older too.
Okay. And then a second question, particularly focused on the McKinley-Vento side. One of the challenges is if you think of a simplistic Maslow's hierarchy here, it's very hard to talk to a kid about algebra if they didn't eat breakfast, if they didn't have if they were sleeping on the street, if they didn't eat dinner last night.
Yeah.
What do we do about that? Does the individual school building know about that and take extra
Absolutely.
precautions?
So when we identify a student that's McKinney-Vento, they are automatically, that family is supported by a school social worker, and our school social workers are having those conversations with the families to look at what that need is. And sometimes doing it whether a kid says it or not, because sometimes kids aren't going to say it. And we also, our social workers build relationships with those kids and those families, and then families trust them, and they're able to share with them some of those more personal concerns or needs that are going on, and we're able to intervene. And we support in tons of ways.
Okay.
So.
Maybe a last follow-up, if I could. Do we see our population, particularly on the McKinley-Vento side, as transitory, meaning this kid's here this year, but we don't expect to see them next year? Or do we have a population that's running multiple 2, 3, 4 years in the same situation?
I think it's a mix. We do certainly have kids that pop in and out, and that maybe we're here and gone, or just here and then never here again. And we also do have a chunk of students that are here for a long time under homelessness, and their address would change kind of like during that time. They're staying with this family member or this family member. Sometimes they may have, I just talked with a parent who had obtained permanent residency, and then they no longer have permanent residency, and so now and that's just all within a school year. I think we're on like the 4th move. So it really varies, and there's not like one dominating thing over another with that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Nine 9.02, the testing calendar and assessment plan for the 25-26 school year. The motion is to approve the 25-26 testing calendar and assessment plan as presented.
So moved.
Discussion, here's Glenn.
All right. Well, thank you for time this evening. It's pretty timely with this assessment update as we're right in the middle of our testing season. We just had a little over 1,400 juniors take the ACT at our high schools early this April. We're right now in the middle of 70,000 MAP testing sessions. So some MAP tests have 3 to 4 sessions, so that's what the number 70,000 comes from, even though there's only grades 3 through 8 to do in those, and also our EOCs. And then also we'll have probably about 4,000, a little over 4,000 students, or I'm sorry, 4,000 exams with our advanced placement tests coming up here in May, and that'll be taken by nearly about 2,000 students. So really appreciate all the time of our students, our teachers, our building test coordinators to help organize that. And annually each year we present an update just of the next upcoming testing plan. And so this evening I'll share a little bit of how the plan was developed, as well as some updates that we're considering for the 25-26 school year in here. Overall, each year I can share that we provide a balanced assessment plan, that we utilize multiple different types of assessments ranging from state assessment data to internal district assessments to our professional learning communities, our grade levels or content areas will have professional learning communities where they provide similar assessments so they can review that data together. And then each day students are showing what they know, providing evidence of where they're at on lesson-sized objectives or maybe a unit in there. And so we use all this information together to help provide determinations for learning and next steps for students along the way. And we offer a variety of different types of assessments in here. And so when we talk about the different assessment types within a balanced assessment plan, we have about 5 different types that we use on a regular basis. Formative, these are like just-in-time assessments where it's what did the student learn? Are they learning the particular objectives that we're working towards, and what are they ready to learn next? And this is where these are daily interactive type of assessments could be from an observation or from a quiz that teachers are gathering that information and then pivoting based on what they see. And so students will participate that on a regular basis. We also offer universal screening and benchmarking. So this is an opportunity that we predominantly give this to all students in grades K through 8 in terms of which students are in need of interventions and enrichment. So these types of assessments helps us kind of build information and knowledge around where we might need to learn a little bit more, what interventions that we need to put in place or enrichment. And then some students will also participate in skill analysis or diagnostics. So after a universal screener, if we know there's an area we want to learn more, we might do additional testing to see which is the right intervention we need to provide along the way. And if there is any enrichment or intervention happening, there'll be some progress monitoring that will happen along with that. So some students will participate in that progress monitoring, but also just in the course of a course or a school year, there'll be different formative assessments that are given along the way to see are students on pace to meet the learning goals for the year. And so students will participate in classroom type of formative assessments on monitor their progress towards their objectives for that course or grade level. And then summative unit assessments. Did students master the content? So you can think of final exams, you can think of state testing. So there's different types of summative assessments that we participate in that I'm going to kind of go over a little bit more on the next slide. So on the left here, it's formative, meaning it's kind of just in time. Periodic are the ones in the middle that we give as needed, and then summative, really at the end of a course or end of a long period of time that we give. And we package all these together with a little bit of a flow that involves state testing. So there's going to be a lot of different assessments I'll pop up here. Not every student takes each one. Some are grade dependent. Some are based on the course they're enrolled in. So state testing wise, our students participate in grade level assessments, math and ELA, English language arts, grades 3 through 8, and then science is a grade span. They'll participate that in grades 5 and 8. Our EOCs are end of course assessments, so students participate in those when they finish a high school course that's related to Algebra 1, Biology, English 2, which is sophomore English, government, and then personal finance. If students take a personal finance course that is that those elements are embedded in it, they'll participate in a personal finance EOC. A couple years ago, we began participating with the KEA, which is the Kindergarten Early Assessment. This is what monitors kindergarten entry or kindergarten readiness. We do that annually in the fall. That is an assessment that is required by our early childhood department in the state of Missouri. We participate with our English language learner screener. So any student coming to the country, we provide opportunity for a screener to see if they might need support with our English language learner program. And then annually we measure the acquisition of the English language with our WIDA access test. And then civics and constitution are also assessments that typically juniors participate in. We also give a series of ability assessments. These are helpful with our gifted screening. We offer benchmarking and screening, universal screening in terms of reading and math. And so STAR is really our main screener that we do for reading and math. FastBridge, we participate that with just kindergarten in terms of a math screener. And then with grades 9 and 10, we participate in iReady. Again, it's a reading assessment. Algebra 1, we use the NWEA. And so again, you see a lot of assessments, but not every grade level is participating. It's really based by course. And then we offer a variety at the district level college and career assessments. So our sophomores or 10th graders take the pre-ACT to prepare them for an ACT as 11th graders. Then we also offer a practice ACT to help them take similar questions that they would be exposed to on the ACT, and we provide those results by kind of strand of the ACT back to families and the students as well. And then students wishing to enroll in AP exams that are in AP courses may take advanced placement courses as well. And then we also offer social emotional learning, academic mindset and behaviors, climate type inventories, and we give that 2 times a year with our SEL survey. And then on even years, so next year will be an even year 26, that's the Missouri Student Survey, and that's formerly known as a drug and alcohol survey issued by the Department of Health at the elementary secondary of Missouri. And then in our classrooms, our teams of teachers and PLCs, our professional learning communities are giving common assessments. So that way they're able to look at assessment data together and talk about strengths and areas that we continue to improve and trade teaching strategies and instructional strategies. And then in the classroom, ongoing on a daily basis, students will participate in these. And again, not every assessment is something that's captured or written down, but it's a way to know, what do we need to do next? What do we need to continue working on as we set goals with our students and help them learn to set goals? Assessments help us understand where we're at in relation to those learning targets that we have together. So this visual I appreciate just because it helps kind of tie, like we use all this information that we gather from state assessments, our district assessments, our common assessments as a team, and then also individually in the classroom, that all this information is used together. Even though the state testing feels far away and only happens 1 time a year, it is a piece of information we use whenever we're making educational decisions and supporting programs and such. So recommendations that our committee from our Testing Assessment Advisory Committee have shared. We'll continue with our reading screening to meet dyslexia screening and Senate Bill 681 requirements. This was relatively new 2 years ago, so we're continuing to do that on a regular basis. We are modifying or changing from COGAT, so our second grade screening we did for gifted identification process, we're moving from the COGAT to the Nagulary. Big reason for that switch is the Nagulary, it's online. We get those results a little bit more quickly, and it's a nonverbal assessment. So it doesn't require so text doesn't become a barrier, right? And so it's a much student-friendly process because we give it at the second grade level. And it doesn't qualify or determine gifted that they're going to go to the gifted program. It's really just a part of the process. It's a screener that all students participate in, and it's one that we worked with Dr. Rhodes, our Director of Gifted Education, to help select this, so it aligns very well with the gifted identification process. But this will allow a screener for all second graders that, dependent on the score and the cutoff there, will determine further additional gifted testing for the gifted identification process inside of there. The other new development is our middle school math program. They recently adopted a new math program last year. With that, they have an assessment system that is called Momentum that comes with it, and our middle school students also participate in STAR. We don't want to add additional testing, and if this program can meet what we need in terms of helping us identify interventions or enrichment that might be needed, then we will start with Momentum instead of STAR, right? However, we need to wait until we get MAP results back from this year, because this was the first year with their math program, and so we want to make sure that we see the same correlation that we see with predictive of MAP results and such with STAR and how we're using it, that we can with Momentum before we are confident in making that switch. But that is something that we've worked with teachers closely on to share that, we're not wanting to over-test students by any means. However, we want to make sure that the information we're getting is similar and we're able to continue moving forward with that inside of there. We're going to continue with the ACT for all juniors. ACT is beginning to make some switches, some changes for ACT moving forward. One of the things they are going to be doing is similar to right now. There's 4 content areas for the ACT. There's also a 5th area, writing, that is optional for students to take. They are going to move the science subtest of the ACT now to something similar where students can opt into taking it very similar to the ACT writing. In Rockwood, we have always offered, well, I should say always, we've at least the past 12, 13 years, we've offered the ACT for all juniors. Next year, we're going to continue to offer it again, and we will include the science subtest with it. Right now, I think colleges are still wrestling with what does this mean in terms of entrance requirements, what's this mean in terms of programs students might be interested in. So we think it's right now in our best interest to continue as we've been giving it. So it'll be the ACT plus science, if you will. The composite score now going forward will be made up of English, reading, and math. That'll be the composite score. The good news, even students that participated this year, all their scores are still good. Colleges are working with ACT to make sure that everything is able to be utilized for their entry requirements and everything. So we don't foresee any issues there, but do feel it's best to continue with the science subtest moving forward. And then next year, around this time, we'll adjust and look at it again. Continue to monitor testing updates from our Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and a Success Ready group. There probably going to be more updates coming from the Success Ready group and DESE regarding this, but this is a group that's looked at how do we evolve our assessment process. As we kind of shared, our state testing is a one time of year. How might that look if we did more interim testing so we can give more timely feedback rather than you take it in May, you get results back in August, or sometimes even later than that. Really hard to make adjustments. So a positive direction they're looking at. Still a lot of questions out there, and so making sure we're continuing to monitor what's coming out of that group and sharing it will be important in a recommendation the group's making. And then lastly, continue to provide professional learning focused on using our ongoing assessments to form instruction. So those formative, those frequent assessments, how do we use that information to change our instruction along the way inside of there? In summary, our delivery methods will have a slight increase with AP advanced placements continuing to add online. This year, if you have any students or know any family members that are participating in advanced placement, there are more portions of the advanced placement tests online than there have been before, without an option to do paper. The Nagulary will be our second grade, again, gifted identification process screener. Our assessed content areas, really we're staying the same. We haven't added any new content areas being assessed within our plan. The K through 12 student testing time is going to be consistent with what's required by the state. The testing time with Rockwood will be a slight decrease with their switch to Nagulary, and overall consistent, cost will be similar as well. Maybe a slight decrease. I think when I priced it out last, our Nagulary is less per student than what the COGAT was that we were paying. So in summary, this is our assessment plan for 25-26, and any questions I can help answer this evening.
I'm just curious on the AP online, are we allowed to use our personal Chromebooks and there's
Yes.
a code that the students use?
Yes.
Because my kid has had to do paper pencil, so I just was curious on
Yeah,
that.
so he hasn't had one of them ones that, so
No,
they're
not-
slowly rolling that out. They've made, I want to say there were, don't quote me on this number, 12 that involved an online portion, that some would do it on paper, like a portion of the test is on paper and the other portion is all on the computer where they're writing it. But there is software and there's updates we do to our Chromebooks that we work with Bob and Brad in their department to get those ready.
I just am curious, this doesn't always work
And
perfectly, so sometimes,
and
stuff
sometimes
happens.
and
so I was just
sometimes
curious
powers
about
out,
that.
and yes.
Yeah. Especially with AP, because they're so stringent on the day, the time, what have you. Okay.
Yes, and so we try to mitigate as much as possible. So we have ordered additional power strips to have in places where they're testing so they could be plugged in. So if there needs to be a student that needs to be plugged in because it might not be charged all the way, we've ordered extra chargers to help out with that. We have extra Chromebooks on standby to help out with those situations where maybe the software's not working, there's a glitch. So we're trying to mitigate as many possibilities as possible because we understand it's very stressful to do that. And I will say it's been a big change this year because they went a lot online quickly with how they're doing this rollout. But it should improve the timeliness in which they get some results back as well.
It's a lot quicker than the map.
Yeah.
Glenn, really quickly, with the ACT, colleges during the pandemic were beginning to pause and kind of soften the importance of that particular assessment. So I really want our parents to understand that us including that science subtest is not only important for, and our students to understand this, not only for admissions into college, but also when you're pursuing scholarships
100%.
The importance of that test has begun to ratchet back up. So
Yes.
I appreciate the responsiveness in terms of how we are responding as a school district compared to what the market is in fact asking for.
Yes, and thank you for pointing that out, that is starting to increase. They went to a test optional method around the 2020, 2021, and then slowly it's more institutions are starting to require some type of assessment. In a lot of cases around us, it's the ACT. So thank you, yeah.
I was going to say, I think it's even ramping up more than slow. I think U.S. News and World Report put in an article that over 50% of the colleges that made it optional have undone that now
Yeah.
and gone back to ACT or SAT, something is required. So,
Yeah.
Thank you for including the Rockwood District testing calendars, middle, elementary, high. I think those are helpful
Yeah, we try to put those out each year,
Yeah.
so that way they're able to
for parents
see it at
and
their level.
families.
Yep.
And for students to take a look at.
100%.
In terms of the state assessment, what is the timing on the return of that data, sort of determining its usefulness
Yeah.
for instruction?
Yeah, so what it's been in the past, typically we receive data usually in July or August. They're increasing, so starting last year they started to increase some of the delivery on portions of the assessment data. So for example, the item analysis type information, they've been getting to get back sooner. They're now reporting that we should have that back within 10 days. In some cases, the proficiency level, below basic, proficient, advanced, that's taken a little bit longer than within the 10 days. So this year, what they're reporting is we should get the majority of that information back within 10 days. The final results, though, I should say the official, where they're kind of certified through DESE, usually will come back in July now. Thank you.
Interesting.
They're really working to improve their timeliness on their summative right now.
And
'Cause
is that online or is it paper pencil?
It's all online.
It's all online? It's changed, okay.
Yes. Yeah. It'll be a lot of paper to move.
Mara? Any other discussion? Okay. So again, the motion is to approve the 2025-2026 testing calendar and assessment plan as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it, and the motion passes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job, as always. 9.03, Policy 3170, Purchasing, and this is the first readings. The motion is to postpone approval of changes to Policy 3170, Purchasing, until the May 15th, 2024 Board of Education meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All right. Does anybody?
Would you like us to speak to it? Any questions? We covered it.
I mean,
Well, we
yeah.
talked, yeah. Okay. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and that motion passes. Now, we have the FY26 proposed budget update with Cindy and Dan. Cindy Boyes and Dan Steinberger. And this is information only.
Okay, good evening. So in preparation for your approval of the fiscal year 25-26 budget in June, we're here tonight to present an update of this year's budget development and provide detail of changes that have happened since December and detail of what will be presented to you in June for approval. Our budget always supports the district's strategic plan and current year district priorities. As you know, the budget process is a year-round cycle, And at your December 17th meeting, Dan and I presented an in-depth review of all the factors behind the budget, considerations that we'd made in the projections at that time. Tonight, we're going to focus mainly on the changes. However, we're including all of that information that we presented in December in this packet so that it all stays preserved as a total picture. So the district continues to be recognized by national organizations for financial and budget reporting, and I didn't tell Dan I was going to do this, but they actually presented the award for the Meritorious Budget Award and Certificate of Excellence at the Missouri ASBO conference that I was at earlier this week. He couldn't be there to accept the award, so I accepted for him, but I want to give him a round of applause for that. Because it's really Dan and his staff that do so much work toward those, and I was really sad that you didn't get to be there and get your ovation there, so thank you. So key financial factors in the budget process. As you know, 90% of our operating revenue comes from 4 main revenue sources. We'll look at those in a minute. We'll talk more later about the potential decrease to the SAT from the governor's speech and the House budget that was put forth. Our budget consistently has over 85% of our operating expenditures committed to salaries and benefits. We're going to show you the impact of the transition of the Proposition 3 funding, where we transfer the levy from the debt service fund to the capital projects fund. We'll show you how the decline in student enrollment is impacting our revenue. And then, of course, in these numbers that we're giving you tonight, the impact of senior citizen tax freeze, Senate Bill 190, is still not estimated in here. We're still holding, and we'll explain our tax revenue in a minute here. We do have some insights on what might happen to the funding of items in Senate Bill 727, and we'll cover some of that tonight also. Our biggest budget priority every year is fiscal responsibility. We try to make the most realistic projections possible without assuming increases in revenue that aren't at least probable. You'll see that as we go through some of the changes since December. Maintenance of our self-insured or self-funded health insurance fund is a major priority. Then we know we have to account for all of the just necessary items of operating, keeping the lights on, keeping our insurance paid. And so since December, we've gotten a lot more information about those items so we could fine-tune those estimates a little bit. It must be sustainable, so even though every slide tonight isn't going to show a 3-year projection, we do 3-year projections on every item, and you will see that in June as we present the full budget book. And of course, maintenance of our fund balance in accordance with board policy. In our operating funds, staff salaries and benefits are always the biggest priority. As I said, that's 85% of our budget. Tonight, we've what we're presenting tonight, we've updated our estimates for current negotiations. Is still going on with one of our employee groups, our bus drivers, and our new estimates honor all previously negotiated salary schedules for all those employee groups. All other employees are getting the same salary and wage increases equivalent to the teachers' increase. We'll talk a lot about Proposition 3 here in a little bit, and debt service. Our priority is just to adequately fund the remaining outstanding debt. Okay, now Dan's going to give you a little bit of a reminder about our funds.
All right, good evening, and thank you for that earlier. This is just a summary of kind of just the accounting for the district, how we report our activities, Going back to the budget cycle in December, when we have our first conversation, we typically focus on just the operating funds, so that's the incidental teachers' funds. That's primarily funded through our local tax base, as well as our capital projects, Proposition 3. Tonight, we have some additional information on some of our self-supporting programs, child nutrition, community education, and as Cindy mentioned, debt service. So this comprises kind of our reporting requirements by the state of Missouri, as well as our financial and audit reporting. This is just another way to look at that. We've have focused more so towards the bottom of the screen here of how we present this, where our operating is focuses on the incidental and teachers fund, and we've broken out the capital fund separately, even though it is operating, but with that being more of a dedicated resource towards Proposition 3 and the specifications behind safety, technology, and facilities that's providing. We've kind of kept that separate. So, and then we also still have our debt service fund as well. So, as we kind of close out the 24-25 school year, we're nearing the end here of fiscal year. We are a July 1 through June 30. So this just provides a high-level snapshot of where we started on July 1 with the adopted budget back in December when we presented an update for information that was based on what we had at that time, and then our most recent projection in May here. And you kind of see that all the lines, it's not uncommon for our projections to change throughout the year. Lots of whether it's based on collection trends in local taxes, or other decisions that are made throughout the course of the school year. But overall, since December, we've had an increase of about $700,000. We do expect an increase to our fund balance of $1.3 million compared to our adopted budget. When you compare that to an overall $270 million budget, it's less than the 0.5%. So overall, it looks very comparable to what we presented back in December when we went through a very full detail of those changes for the 24-25 school year.
Oops. No. So the numbers that we are presenting tonight maintain the same assessed valuation estimates that we provided back in December. We have received a little more information from St. Louis County. They send us assessed valuation information so that we can prepare the non-binding tax rate that they use to provide notices to all of our taxpayers in the district. That indicates that there could be up to a 13% increase in assessed valuation. But we know, based on prior year trends, that always decreases as we get closer to the date that we set our tax rate. It goes through Board of Equalization, and other things happen where they can hone that down. We know that that's also going to be offset by whatever happens with the senior citizen property tax. So we, in December, had estimated about a 5% increase in revenues in local tax revenue, and we are staying with that same estimate. The VIC reimbursement rate went up, so that even though we are actually going to have less VIC revenue this next year because of the decrease in enrollment, it went up by about $300 per student. Basic formula will show you some more calculations, but we told you that after the governor's speech on January 28th, he stated that he was not going to make a recommendation in the budget for the SAT to increase from the $6,760 that it is currently at to the $7,145 per ADA that it's supposed to move to in fiscal year 26. And that is how the governor's budget appeared as it passed through the House. When the budget got to the Senate, though earlier this week, they did approve, they changed it, and they changed it to full funding of the SAT. So now it has to go back to the House, but things are looking better that we might be able to get that full SAT funded. And so we have kept that in our budget, which is as it was presented in December, and we'll show you the impact of that in a little bit here. On transportation, we had expected 40%, but in the governor's speech, he brought that up to 100, said he was going to fund that at 100%. So that is currently in the Senate budget and was in the House budget, so we expect 100% funding of 100% of the 75% that we get. Okay, so this hasn't changed much from what we showed you in December. It doesn't change much from year to year. Rockwood is a locally funded school district. As I said, we put a lot of this data in there to show consistency with December, that we have not changed those numbers, and so that we have the full package of revenue drivers and assumptions together in this presentations package. But nothing has changed in our AV assumption. This is also the same that was shown in December. The tax rate is expected to remain close to the same as it is this year. A small decrease in the recoupment portion of the calculation, but results in about the same revenue calculation. This was covered in December also. I just want to remind you again that these budget estimates don't include any impact from Senate Bill 190, because that information is just not available yet. But we do expect that the impact that's going to have on our budget is it's going to decrease our collection rate. AV will be the same, tax rate will be the same. People who qualify for that senior citizens tax credit are going to get a tax bill that shows their total actual AV, our actual tax rate, and a tax amount. Then it will show a credit of the amount between whatever the current year tax amount is and the year that they first qualified for the credit, and that will be the amount that they pay, if that makes sense. So it isn't a decrease in the total amount of tax that's calculated, it's a decrease in the amount that they have to pay. It's a decrease in the amount that we get to collect. Same enrollment projections as we showed you in December. The demographic study that we've been talking about will be presented to you in June as well. Looking at their preliminary numbers that they've been able to provide us 1 year out, so fiscal year 25-26 that we're budgeting right now, is not very far off from their projection. So that gave me a lot of confidence in what Dan and Carl are doing each year as they project enrollment, but we really do need the experts and their shinier crystal ball to be able to look out any further than a year. Okay, we went over state formula quite a bit in December, but this is where we've got so many moving parts that I want to go over it with you again. So the state adequacy target that we're using is the $7,145. If you, that's the column right in the center of the chart there. You can see that it's been 6,000. This year is 6,760. Next year is projected to go to 7,145, and then we will keep that. So we have, we'll see an increase in 25-26 of almost $6 million. And then after that, because we don't expect the SAT to increase any further and our enrollment is declining, we'll start to see the reduction in state revenue, in state formula revenue. We have included in the budget the Senate Bill 727 incentive for having a minimum 169-day school year. So as long as we've kept that in this current school year, we'll see that money in October. This slide shows what will happen if if the House does not accept, or if the governor does not accept the Senate's proposal to fully fund the SAT. So the governor in the state of Missouri does have line item veto. The Senate can propose this, the House can approve it as well, but we won't really know until late in June whether or not we will get this full funding. So we're still a little bit on pins and needles. But if that goes back to the 6,760, that means almost $7.1 million will disappear from our budget. Okay, other revenue factors that we went through with you in December, none of this has changed. Prop C, we mentioned that we had moved 36 cents of merchants and manufacturing surtax from the Capital Projects Fund to the Teachers Fund, and that our VIC program revenues were decreasing.
Okay. Along with revenues, we also will refine and take a look at our expenditures. Any kind of adjustments that are made, even in 24-25, may impact next year. Those are taken into account for. We carefully review any adjustments just to make sure that they stay within our forecasting projections, as well as our budget priorities, the priorities that Cindy had recapped earlier in the presentation. So in a couple slides, we're going to show you what we expect will be our recommended budget that we'll be bringing forth to the board in June for adoption. It'll be a part of the larger budget book document that you are used to seeing. So, but all the decisions that have been made over the last few months, especially as it relates to salaries and benefits, have been accounted for and are reflected in those expenditure numbers. That includes, as I mentioned, the salary pieces, any kind of cabinet or board change approvals that were made for staffing. As we discussed in December, we are still holding a 25% fill rate for those areas that still have openings. Custodial, child nutrition, those areas that we are looking to attract and hire additional to get kind of back to our staffing levels. It is maintaining our district premium contribution, where the district is paying 100% of eligible employees and 50% of dependents. We also take a look at all of our other expenditures, our property and liability insurance. That was a big piece of our conversation back in December, of our premiums increasing, and with some of the recent storms and claims that we've had over the last couple of months, we took a look back at what we can expect next year's premiums to be, and just other inflationary costs and contracts that have come up as we've gone through the bidding process. Those have been accounted for and adjusted in the next couple slides we'll show you. So. Again, this is another pie chart that looks very similar to what year over year, 85% of our operating budget is in salaries and benefits, and very little change in what some of the other fixed costs, which would be like our business insurance, transportation, fuel, and our utilities, and about 10% is in supplies and services. So from a revenue standpoint, we expect to move forward with a revenue budget of $285 million. So that is a $14 million increase over our current projection. We spent a lot of time back in December and over the last couple of months just providing updated information, as well as sharing some of the information tonight of what goes into the 25-26 budget. As you can see, local taxes, 79% of that budget is revenue is accounted for through local taxes. That's our assessed valuation, and with a large component being the state revenue there. The one refinement there, you can kind of see in the far right column to our change in 26 is the $4 million, as Cindy kind of mentioned earlier. 3.5 million of that is related to that transportation change, where we had the 40% expected 40% revenue, but at this point 100% of the 75% is being included. So
Okay, so looking at the expenditure side, as Dan just said, we have included all of the salaries and benefits that have been approved. Updated our benefits costs based on additional information that we've gotten from our insurance, our health insurance consultants, and just brought that up as close as we can to what that actual cost is going to be. Utilities and the transportation and fuel line, both of those lines, we just have better estimates because we have more months behind us to tweak those, and we have winter behind us now, so it looks like we're going to save a little bit on utilities, just a little, every little bit counts. On supplies and services, the biggest change there is just tweaking, just having more months behind us and more our purchase orders that have been developed, requests for proposals that come back, and we know we're closer to what things are actually going to cost for the next year. So total expenditures is an 11.4 million year-over-year increase. We still have, we're projecting that we're going to end the year with a positive change in the fund balance, but as we've discussed before, the more expenses that you have, the higher you have to add to your fund balance to maintain the same fund balance percentage. So even though we have a positive net change in our fund balance percent is dropping just a little bit.
Okay, on the capital side, our capital budget's going to be pretty straightforward. What this chart shows here is just the transition. It really highlights the Prop 3 transfer. Starting from left to right, you can see 2 years ago, that 68 cents was in our debt service fund that was supporting our outstanding general obligation bonds and interest payments, and with the community support and the transition of over 2 years, you can kind of see the darker blue portion there kind of shrinking and moving up into the capital projects levied there. So for next year, we will have 62 cents total in the capital projects fund, of which 54 cents of that is allocated towards Proposition 3, as promised during the Proposition 3 process. So from a capital projects fund, close to 30 million of that is generated through Proposition 3. So that will be separated in our accounting, and 100% of that will go into the projects that are listed through our Prop 3 work with feedback from the Capital Planning Advisory Committee. And then we have an additional $4 million that is going to capital to take care of other capital needs, purchases of buses, other furniture and equipment to help support our schools and buildings. So as I kind of mentioned, not a lot of changes since December on our capital projects funds. One piece from an expenditure standpoint is, as it relates to Prop 3, we're always going to budget 100% of the collections that we're going to get from Proposition 3. 100% of that's going to go into expenditures. But what happens, though, a lot of times, especially it relates to our facilities projects, is that it crosses over fiscal years. So a lot of your HVAC work, your parking lot renovations, they're going to start in May and June, but from a accounting perspective, it's going to carry over into 2 years. So over a 2-year period, you'll see 100% of the funds there, but it may, the next slide is going to show is it's going to look like we're increasing our fund balance this year, but that's really just timing as it relates to the completion of those projects going into next year, but year over year, the fund balance will stay relatively flat. So that's a major difference as from a presentation standpoint from December, but that's really just because we have a better idea as to when our projects are going to be starting and completing near at this point. So again, not a lot of changes on this one. I had to double check this a couple times, just not seeing any movement there, but we haven't made any changes to our assumptions and our revenue, with it primarily being local taxes. We talked about that earlier. Cindy did, is relating to the assessed valuation piece. So 34.9 million there for revenue. Again, 30 million of that's related to Proposition 3. So this is here where you can kind of see the changes in our expenditures. Back in December, you can kind of see it was pretty much a break-even budget there, but taking into account the project timelines and everything, we're going to increase in the current year 6.8 million or 7.8 million, but of that 7 million is going into next year as we kind of complete that. And I would expect every year to have a similar presentation as it relates to the timing of those projects. This is a summary that we shared back in December of work that we shared with the Capital Advisory Committee of the 30 million that we have planned for 25-26. 20.3 million is in facilities related to HVAC, roofs, paving, 6 million technology. We have 3.3 million in safety and security, which goes for next year. We're going to complete our door access controls at our secondary schools, and we have other projects related to radios and cameras as well. So.
Okay, so you can see our debt service fund. This is the easiest fund to budget. Our tax rate is 36 cents this year. It'll drop to 14 cents when that second Prop 3 transfer happens. We're using the same assumptions on assessed valuation as we did in the operating fund that we just spoke about, and there's no estimate required for these expenses because we know what our bond payments are due, principal and interest, and that's all we budget in this fund.
So from a self-supporting programs, child nutrition, student activities, community education, these again are different funds of our accounting for these areas. Child nutrition is, their largest piece to their budget for next year that we'll see in the next slide is they've had a fund balance that's carried over for a couple of years, primarily from when we received federal pandemic funds for the meals that were provided to students. So they are required to spend that down. There's certain fund balance thresholds they have to have. So they've been working over the last couple of years on a plan. In the next couple of years, you're going to see a lot of those expenditures coming through for the replacement and upgrades at the kitchens across all of our campuses. So there you're going to see a spend down, a planned spend down related to that for specifically capital items there. Our student activities, that's all the the funding that goes in daily from the schools for their fundraisers and different activities that happen. That's pretty much break even every year. And then community education also is dependent on their experience for participation, is the programs that they offer, and then their budgets are based off of that information, which you will see a little bit of a surplus this year and a spend down next year, but overall they're managing it within their current experiences. So again, this is a quick snapshot of those self-supporting funds. You can see there that first column there, child nutrition, you can see where they'll be spending that down, and we expect you can see there at the ending fund balances there. Student activities are pretty much break even, as I kind of mentioned, their activities in and out. In community education, you can see it, they're pretty much a flat fund balance over the course of the 2 years there.
Okay, so this is just to summarize and look at the outlook for the future. We have positive fund balance growth, as I said a minute ago, but the total fund balance percentage is staying pretty flat. We're going to have an increase in the fund balance if the SAT is approved at 71.45. Otherwise, we're going to see that $7 million drop. We just will continue to monitor all the legislative activity. The impact of Senate Bill 190 is going to be worked in there as soon as we have some information to provide to you on that. And we continue to focus on keeping that 22% operating reserve when, we're looking 3 years out for that. You guys remember that we're at 37% now, but projections show us getting down to that 22% based on the current projection of our current commitments. We want to maintain our AAA rating and manage our cash flow so that we don't ever have to have a tax anticipation note, and we're going to closely align to the long-term goals of the new strategic plan. Are there any questions we can answer for you?
I want to thank your department for doing a fantastic job. So, I mean, to get all 3 of those awards and be the only school district in the state of Missouri, it's quite an achievement, and it's a testament to you all and your staff. So, thank you very much. I heard a lot of talk about legislation, but I didn't hear a lot of talk about tariffs. And I know we're doing a lot of upgrades to technology, buses, cameras, things like that. Do we feel okay where we're projected? I know that expenses are
Well-
going to go up, but we've approved POs, but for a lot of new Chromebooks and upgrades, do we anticipate
It's-
that's going to be a lot more? Or?
It is another big unknown, and we don't know how long it'll last, and we don't know what prices of anything
Even
are going to
food.
do.
Right.
So, but we have heard from some vendors that expect tariffs, as they've given us a heads up. Whether it's a sales tactic or not, we don't know. But where we know that it's just a timing difference. We had planned on buying these Chromebooks, or we had planned on buying whatever, and we can get it for the price we planned on getting it for. We've gone ahead and put that purchase order through for your approval, and some of those came through just tonight. So a few more will come through next week, or next board meeting. But yes, we're trying to plan without making any knee-jerk, rash decisions on what things are going to cost. Some things are just going to, and we've always experienced that. You have a bond issue, you plan for some major construction, and then construction costs go up, and you can't get what you thought you would get out of that bond. So we've always had to manage those things, and we'll just continue to do so.
On slide 28, that pie chart is amazing. And I know that we promised our voters that we would share how we're going to use our Prop 3 funds. Is that part of that communication plan?
That is, and we are also working on some serious upgrades to what's on the website currently, so that will be out soon.
Thank you.
So a couple of things, if I could. One, just starting off with a comment. It'd be nice when we talk in June to be able to understand from a capital perspective, when do we expect to get the age of our HVAC systems under 18 years old? Because I know that's the kind of the line there around 20. Maybe putting 18 to be a little padding. I know it was 3 or 4 years out there, but just the reason why I'd like to see that is that's kind of when we can start saying, okay, we should have a reasonable wear and tear part. Until we get closer to that, we could still have an age system go out that we didn't expect to go out. And we still have to factor that in when we talk about the fund balance reserve and all those kinds of things. So I just like to kind of have a perspective of how much progress we're making getting the average age of our HVAC systems younger. A second comment, and I completely understand, we've talked about it many times, that we're going to have a 1-year bump here now in our reserves, and then a hopefully nice glide path down, hopefully. What else is out there that we're not planning for because it's not probable, but it's certainly still possible? I know a general comment to that is a major change in the state budget. Like the governor's curveball he threw at us at the beginning of this year, absolutely could happen again next year. So could a line item veto. Are there other things out there that are on either of your radars that they're not probable, so we're not putting them in the budget, but they're certainly possible?
Well, I'm remembering that the whole impact of Senate Bill 190 and what our actual AV is going to be is a big stab in the dark right now. I'll tell you, we're just using our best guesses at that, and we discussed it for quite a while. There is so also in the governor's State of the State speech, he mentioned forming a school funding modernization committee. And so there's been a lot of talk about that, and there was talk about it just recently at the MOASBO conference I was at. That committee is being formed, and my understanding is it's going to be headed by Carrie Monsis, who is the current Deputy Superintendent of Finance Administration for DESE, and he's retiring from that. They're putting that together, but it's going to take some time to get the committee and the work groups under that committee put together. It's going to take them a while to do their studying. It's going to, so I don't really expect whatever they come up with to have any impact on us for, and then legislature has to pass it.
Right.
So, these wheels move very, very slowly. I'm not hopeful that we'll see anything from that in the next 5 years. I mean, just can't be predicted. But that's always on the back burner. And as long as that kind of stuff is being talked about, hopefully some of the ideas and some of the needs discussion flows out to the legislators, and they get to hear more. And so maybe we won't get wacky things going on while that's in the forefront of what people are thinking about. I don't know. As far as any other potential funding, there's nothing that I have heard of. Now we are going out for some smaller grants. We're hopeful on those, but they're small. So, but we're taking every opportunity that we can.
Sure. Do we anticipate any impact if the Senate actually passes House Bill 711 on the open enrollment front from a financial perspective, or do we expect that to be more neutral?
That will be up to you, Bob. No. Seriously, it doesn't have any impact on a school district unless the school district participates. And if the Rockwood School District were to participate, I think the assumption is that we would attract students as opposed to lose students. And so if we were to attract students, their state formula money would come to us, but none of the property taxes would come to us. The property taxes paid by their parents would continue to go to the school district that their parents live in. And so, we have a lot to consider as to whether or not we would want to opt in if we know that,
Essentially, for every student, we're going to take a $4,000 loss. I'm making up a number.
I mean,
It's about half.
Yeah.
It's significant.
That we would be taking on these students with the funding only to pay for half of what we need to pay for them. So, yeah, not really a loss, but not enough gain to cover those additional students.
Right, and to the point where you've got 16 kids in a classroom and you can add a 17th, no biggie, but where you cross a threshold.
Yeah.
This is a really, sorry, Cindy, I've been as quiet as long as I literally can be.
Go
but,
right ahead.
But this is a very important fiscal fact, purely fiscally speaking, for our community to understand. As it's currently constituted, that would cover roughly, the state contribution would cover roughly half the cost to educate a child. And
Right.
that's not always clearly understood. It's one of the reasons there's been so much work that's been invested by this Board of Education with the advocacy work. Is it is critically important that our community understand. It sounds great, but fiscally speaking, it is not a winner for the Rockwood School District.
No, I
Well-
think that as this board just considers what happens if that bill passes the Senate,
Correct.
what our stance is on that, so we're very clear. If we say yes or no, there's implications of it.
There are absolute long-lasting potential implications, yes.
I just wanted to mention that I very much appreciate the what-ifs that you build in to your presentations, because for me, when I look at the overall budget and that amount of money, it just seems like such a tremendous amount of money. It would be easy to be sort of lulled into a sense of security and sort of lose track of the importance of the really, really healthy fund balance, because as you said, this happens or that happens, $7 million, another $1 million. It could just change so drastically, so quickly. And I also am very appreciative that Prop 3 passed and that we keep a healthy enough fund balance that we do not get into the tax anticipation notes, because in a roundabout way, that's sort of another form of revenue for us compared to some other districts, because there are districts that are constantly having a very large bond because that's the only way they can replace their air conditioners. It's the only way they can replace their technology. They're paying interest on that. And every year in November, they're borrowing money for a short period of time, but they still don't give it to you for free. And we're still paying interest. So I'm so thankful that is not an expenditure that we have moving forward, just paying interest because we don't have the money in the bank. So thank you very much.
I have one question on slide 31. The community education budget, it looks like they're predicting about a 9% increase in revenue. What would that be due to? Because I know that they're essentially self-contained. They have to make their own revenue for their expenses.
Yeah, so they're taking a look at some of the details of their rates were based off of some assumption of higher prices that they're able to consolidate some of their programs. So looking at a venture club, they're taking a look at that approach. They're able to consolidate some things that I think is helping the overall, that's allowing for that revenue to increase.
Okay, thanks.
If I could, just one question, comment that I'd like you to address. It's on slide 19 that talks about the district and the premium contribution. It's been a source of conversation in the past, and just could be a pretty important time just to revisit.
Okay, 19? Or
Just
you want
just
see
to
the
revisit
numbers?
that.
Just, no.
Back to
You want to
19.
see the numbers? Is this what the one?
Just want you to address and to speak to
19.
what does that mean? Fiscal impact of maintaining the premium contribution
On insurance.
for
Oh, on
insurance.
the insurance.
Yep.
Okay, you go for it.
So, from that perspective, our experience with our insurance, as we've known for the last couple of years, our prescription costs are averaging 20 to 25% increases. We've been significantly impacted. Our fund we're a self-insured fund, so premiums in are based off of employee contributions as well as the district contributions. And as I kind of mentioned, the district pays for 100% of eligible employees, 50% of dependents. We've been, like everybody, all school districts in other companies are impacted by just the higher pharmacy costs. So the district over the last couple of years has provided some additional supplements to that fund to minimize the impact to employees, with the hopes of, we've been looking at it for it's kind of a, hopefully it addresses it to level it off over the next couple of years, but our current trends are showing that those costs are continuing to increase from that standpoint. So to the tune, I think the budget, back in December we presented and had an adjustment of $3 million that was included in the budget. And that's a continuing cost that's included in the budget. So that's a little bit over $14 million that the district has provided to the insurance fund to help minimize and stabilize the impact on premium increases to employees. So we're currently going through that process now. Every June we present what our next plan year's insurance rates are going to be. So we've been working with the insurance committee that helps with this process, as well as our third-party consultants who do all the kind of the actuary work and kind of set up everything for us to be able to look a year out, essentially. Our plan is November 1 through October 31st. So we're even looking out 18 months of kind of seeing what that trend is and everything like that. So that's been a process we've been kind of working on currently. Did that address it?
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? If not, we will move on to 10.01, proposed agenda for the May 15th, 2025 Board of Education meeting. Actually, I have an motion here, and it is to remove patron, superintendent, and board comments from the May 15th, 2025 Board of Education meeting agenda to accommodate for the board award presentations.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? It's gonna be another great night of awards. It's gonna be good. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Next is future agenda, presentations and events to attend. Wow, track meets, celebrations, retirement,
2 graduations on
Gra-
the same day.
2, 3.
You guys have 3.
Oh, yeah. And yeah. It's fun. It's a fun time. It's a busy time. And before we adjourn, I want to say thank you to everyone who attended tonight. And I appreciate you being here. The meeting is adjourned.